Hey yo, what's up and welcome, I'm the one and only West Coast King, and welcome back to Major League 90, where we are talking Major League Soccer, and it's been a while. It has been a while since we've done one of these, but with Decision Day looming, the final day of the MLS regular season, where everybody plays, and everyone plays at the exact same time, Western Conference opponents playing Western Conference, East playing East. I mean, it's just absolute mad scramble to the finish line. With that day quickly approaching, I figure we better pop on and do one more episode, at least for the regular season, and take a look at all the possible scenarios, where everybody is at, and what I think is going to happen on this final day of the regular season. So, per usual, let's get things started in the Eastern Conference, where things are much clearer. The playoff picture in the East is all but set. There's still technically one spot available, and that is the sixth and final spot currently held by Philadelphia. Technically, mathematically, New England could still take that spot, but it would require not even a small miracle. It would take the biggest miracle in sports history for New England to get that final spot. What it would take is Philadelphia losing their final match of the season. They're playing at home against New York Red Bulls, the current top seed in the East. That's possible. They could lose that match. New England would also have to win their final match of the season. They're playing at home against Montreal, another current playoff team, but that's possible. They could win at home. What's not possible is for them to make up their current minus 12 goal difference that they're behind Philadelphia. Not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. There's no possible way that New England makes up that goal difference. Even if Philly loses by 5, New England wins by 5, New England's still not making the playoffs. I mean, it's not feasible for a team that has that bad of a goal difference to make it all up in one game. No possible way that happens. So, barring any unbelievable miracle, those 6 teams that are currently in the playoff spots are going to be the 6 teams that make the playoffs. So what is to play for in the Eastern Conference on Decision Day? That would be playoff seeding. A lot of things could happen there. So starting off at the top, New York Red Bulls, we already talked about it. They're heading off to Philadelphia for their final match. And I would say, because New York Red Bulls are so hot right now, I want to pick them to win that game. However, their abysmal road record, they have 2 wins this season on the road. I don't think they're going to be able to get it done and get the win. I do think that's going to end in a draw, which would see Philadelphia through to the playoffs if that does happen. Again, I don't think there's any way they fall out anyway, but a draw would secure them a playoff spot. I don't know if they're going to come out and push for a win there, or Philadelphia will, but I do think that's going to end in a draw. New York Red Bulls are hot. Philly just needs that draw. I think that's how it's going to end. So with that draw, New York would secure the second consecutive #1 seed in the Eastern Conference for them. In the number 2 spot right now, we have the other New York team, NYCFC. And what a fantastic season they've had, by the way. Even if their playoffs end in the first round, they've had an amazing season. I did not think that team, the way it's composed, would actually be as good as they are. I really did. I really underestimated them, so I apologize for that. But, hey, they've had a hell of a season, and I do think they most likely will hang on to that number 2 spot. They're at home to take on Columbus on the final day of the season. Columbus are just not very good, are they? They are just not a very good team, and right now they're not playing very well either. So at home at Yankee Stadium, I think New York City FC hangs on to that number 2 spot and gets the win. So in the number 3 spot, we have Toronto, and you can bet that they're just waiting for New York City FC to slip up. It's possible if New York draws against Columbus, Toronto's going to be right there to leapfrog them into the number 2 spot and get that first round bye in the playoffs. They're at home to take on Chicago. I don't think there's any way Toronto loses that match. I think they come out and they handle Chicago quite easily. So, I mean, it's possible NYCFC slip up. I do think they'll win, but if they do draw, Toronto could leapfrog them, and I think that will happen if New York City FC slips up. In the number 4 spot, we have DC United. They're on the road to take on Orlando. Now, just a few matches ago, they played Orlando up at RFK Stadium in DC, and they handled them 4-1. I mean, it was an absolute whooping on Orlando, and that pretty much ended Orlando's chances of a playoff berth right there. Didn't mathematically knock them out, but I mean, that was kind of the turning point for Orlando. Is there going to be any kind of revenge factor there for Orlando? I don't really think so. I think their season's just kind of over. They're just kind of falling down the table now. I think that might end in a draw, but I don't think it matters all that much. I think DC kind of hangs on to that 4th spot regardless of if they win, lose, or draw. And I say that because in the 5th spot, Montreal is on the road to take on New England. We already talked about that. I think that ends in a draw as well. I think that probably ends like 1-1 or 2-2. I don't think New England is going to be able to get that win as much as they desperately need it, and they need it by a lot. I think that's going to leave them susceptible. I don't even know if they believe that they can do it, but if they go out and they push numbers forward, they're going to get hit a couple of times. I don't think Montreal is necessarily going to come out and be great on the road, but I think they'll get enough to get that, to be good enough to get that draw and stay out of that final sixth and final spot where they would have to go to either New York or Toronto. Nobody wants to be in that sixth and final spot. I think that's going to be left to Philadelphia. So like I said, for the Eastern Conference, the playoff picture is pretty clear. What you see right now is pretty much what you're going to get come playoff time. A couple of teams could move around a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be very much. If anything, it might be Toronto moving up to number 2. That's really the only position I see flip-flopping in the Eastern Conference. So now we move on to the West. Are you prepared for what's about to go down on Decision Day in the Western Conference? Get your popcorn ready, pop open a Budweiser, because it's about to go down in the Wild Wild West, okay? Already up top, let's look at the top. FC Dallas and Colorado have flip-flopped in the number 1 spot, and that's the supporter shield race right there. It's down to those 2 teams. Dallas have a monumental task ahead of them going into the final game of the season. They're away at the StubHub Center in LA to take on the Galaxy. Not a lot of people go into LA and win. As a matter of fact, only one team has gone into LA and won this season. It just does not happen very often. On top of that, Dallas has lost Mauro Diaz, a main player on their team. They are not very good without him specifically. He's not going to be available for the rest of this season. I don't know. I don't think that Dallas can go in there and get a win or even a draw. I think LA ends up beating Dallas on the final game of the season, which leaves it up to Colorado. And Colorado have probably the easiest game left out of any Western Conference team. They're at home against Houston. However, Houston, despite being at the bottom of the table in the West, are not an easy out. They are not an easy win. You can't just steamroll Houston. It doesn't happen very often. They're actually very, very good. I mean, they're a tough team to play. I'm not saying they're good. They're a tough team to play. When they want to play, they play very well, and they're a very difficult team to beat. But I think Colorado gets it done. They seem to have turned a corner a little bit. They took a tough loss in Portland last weekend, but not a lot of people go to Portland and win either. But I think Colorado can get it done at home against Houston, and I think Colorado will take the Supporter Shield this season. And in the number 3 spot, we have the LA Galaxy. We already talked about they're playing Dallas. They can't move up, though, and they can't move down. They're locked into the number 3 spot, so there's not much else to talk about as far as the implications for LA, other than they could ruin Dallas's hopes of winning the domestic treble. Already those hopes have taken a major hit with the loss of Fabian Castillo, and I hate to keep bringing that up. I know it's a sore spot for Dallas fans, but that's a big loss. And the loss of Mauro Diaz now, I don't think it's going to be possible for Dallas to win the MLS Cup once the playoffs roll around, but they still have a shot at the Supporter Shield. If they're able to win the Supporter Shield, who knows? Who knows? It's the playoffs. Anything could happen. But if they are able to win the domestic treble, they'd be the first MLS team to do that. LA could put an end to that very early on if they beat Dallas here at home. And now we get to the real meat and potatoes of Decision Day. It's the race for the final playoff spots in the West. We have 4 teams looking for 3 spots, and oh boy, is it going to be intense. Currently holding the number 4 spot is RSL. However, they're going to be on the road in Seattle at CenturyLink Field in front of the biggest home crowd in the MLS to take on the Seattle Sounders, who are 1 spot and 1 point behind them in the Western Conference. On top of that, RSL all-time at CenturyLink Field has 2 wins, 6 losses, and 2 draws. In their last 5 games there, they have not won a match and have been outscored by 14 goals. And on top of that, coming into this game, RSL are winless in their last 6 games and have been shut out in 4 of their last 5. Do you think they're going to win in Seattle? I don't think so. But I do think it's going to be a lot tougher game than maybe what I just suggested it might be. It might sound like I just said that, Sounders are going to win this thing like 4-0. I don't think so. Both of these teams are struggling right now to hold on. RSL, like I said, they can't score goals right now. They're fighting defensively to keep the game low scoring, and I think it's going to be a low scoring affair at CenturyLink as well. Seattle is just fighting to make the playoffs at this point, and they were soaring a couple of weeks ago. Before they lost Clint Dempsey, they looked like one of the most dangerous teams in the league. I said, if they make the playoffs, that's the team I don't want to play in the Western Conference. Not so much anymore. Without Clint Dempsey, I don't think they're going to have enough to really make a threatening run in the Western Conference. But if they can make the playoffs after the season that they've had, the start to the season, and continuing on through about half of the year, they were abysmal. They look like one of the worst teams in the league, and now they have a chance to make the playoffs. If they can do that, they can fight just for one more game and be able to make the playoffs, I think that's going to be a successful season. Like I said, the home crowd at CenturyLink is going to be behind them. I don't think that they're going to lose that game. I do think that they beat RSL, and I think that they're going to end up in the 4th spot in the Western Conference. Well, if they beat RSL, they will end up in the 4th spot, and they'll be able to host a playoff game. So that leaves us with the final 2 teams playing for that last playoff spot. Sporting Kansas City and Portland. Now, Sporting is in the 6th spot right now. So if both teams lose, Sporting would hold that final spot. However, Sporting is playing at home against San Jose, or as my brother likes to call them, the Fighting Wandos. I think Sporting goes ahead and wins that game. At home, I just think that they're the better team. They're very difficult to play at home. I think that they end up winning that game and securing that final spot for themselves. Unfortunately for Portland, they're playing on the road at Vancouver. They haven't won a road game all year. Let's start off with that. They haven't won a road game all year. It's very unlikely that they go up there and win anyway, especially in a Cascadia clash. I don't think that they could. I wanted to pick them to win that. Just to make it interesting, I wanted to pick them to win. However, when you also factor in that they're not going to have Liam Ridgewell, they're not going to have Chara, they're just missing too much, and it's too big of a task for them. I think it probably ends in a draw, but a draw's not going to get it done. Even if Sporting draws with San Jose, which is probably unlikely, I think that Sporting is going to win that match. There's just no possible way that Portland's going to make the playoffs without a win. It starts there, and I think it ends there. I just don't think they're going to win in Vancouver. So that is what the playoff picture is looking like right now. It is absolute chaos, especially in the Western Conference. And with every game kicking off at the same time on decision day, it makes it even more ridiculous and just absolutely insane. But it is really an interesting situation. No other sport does it like this. And it does create a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz around the league. I think that maybe the MLS is missing out a little bit. I think if they split it into 2 different kickoff times, maybe the Eastern Conference plays first, then the Western Conference, and they have 2 nationally televised games, could be a little bit better, especially as far as TV stuff goes. But either way, it is what it is. It's really, really exciting. I wish I could be there at CenturyLink for this final game. Unfortunately, it's not looking like I will be able to get there. If I do, I'll vlog it, but it's very unlikely that, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get there. But either way, that is going to be the nationally televised game, RSL and Seattle, so I'll be watching either way. I hope you guys will be watching as well, regardless of what game you want to see. Hopefully, you're supporting your local team or whatever team you do support, and it all works out well for you, unless you're in the Western Conference, and then go Seattle. So, yeah. But that is it for this one. If you did enjoy it, make sure to let me know by leaving a like below. Subscribe if you're new. And I will see you when we come back for some more Major League 90 when the playoffs roll around. See ya.